Senator Patty Murray, the veteran Democrat from Washington state and a former preschool teacher herself, came to the Senate Help Committee with a message that cut right through the noise. Accountability is not a weapon. Murray squared off against what she called a dangerous pattern, the Trump administration freezing childcare funding for entire states, not based on evidence, but on viral videos and political theater. What followed was a masterclass in drawing the line between real oversight and manufactured outrage.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you, Chair Cassidy, for having this hearing today. But I got to say, no one wants our child care system to work more than me as a former preschool teacher. And if my colleagues know anything about me, they know that this is one of my top priorities and really working to solve the child care crisis that we do have in America. And it is a crisis. We do not have enough providers. They're not paid a living wage. They're barely keeping their doors open. And parents cannot hardly find, let afford child care today. So we have to solve that. And I'd love to have a hearing about that specific framework, Mr. Chairman. But if we do want to solve the child care crisis, that does mean we're going to have to make some very serious federal investments. And we are going to have to make the most of those investments. We can't afford to have this work delayed or derailed by fraud. So let me be unequivocal here. I will always champion transparency and accountability. I want high-quality programs, not for-profit money grabs. But accountability has to be a tool to bolster child care, not a ruse to distract from solutions or a pretext to target programs that families do rely on. Serious oversight involves prosecuting specific cases based on solid evidence, like the Biden administration did, not issuing a blanket freeze on funding for entire states based on conspiracies or politics like Trump has done. Apparently, if some right-wing YouTube account posts a video about fraud, that means that the Trump administration is going to jump to attention and block child care funding for an entire state. That is wrong. We need to get real for a second. We can't just assume a child care center is committing fraud because they won't let any random person show up, shout with a camera, and come in and demand to see the kids. Do we really want child care centers to let in any weirdo if they yell loud enough? Of course not. That is very dangerous. Still, President Trump is treating conspiracy like gospel today, and blind accusations are not accountability. Witch hunts are not oversight. Instead of more accountability, what we are seeing is more harassment of child care providers as self-appointed vigilantes. They show up with cameras, they bang on the door, they peep through the windows, and demand to see kids. That, to me, is deeply alarming. We do need accountability, absolutely, but that goes for everyone, including the president and everyone who's fanning the flames of conspiracy. Mr. Wilde, let me start with you. You have overseen child care and Head Start programs at both the state and federal level. You understand the oversight tools built into our current law, including audits, monitoring, and the ability to recover misspent funds. Based on your experience, is a statewide funding freeze necessary to evaluate claims of fraud?
Thank you, Senator Murray, and thank you for your commitment and service in Head Start, which I super appreciate. I don't think it makes sense to have a statewide freeze. I think it punishes the vast majority of providers who are absolutely committed to children and doing the right thing every day. I think program integrity is crucial, but it should be done in a way that's focused and targeted and doesn't affect all providers. I'd say when you shut down payments, 3 different groups are hurt. The first is low-income working parents whose centers might be closed and thus they can't go to work. The second is the child care providers themselves. In my experience, child care providers, when something like this happens, they first stop paying themselves, but then...
Absolutely. Cut back. And I want to get on because I just have a few seconds. But I do want to hear from each of our witnesses. Have you ever let in an unannounced stranger into one of your child care centers, someone who claims they're an independent journalist or holding an iPhone or asking to see proof of kids? Any one of you, yes or no? Mr. Wilde?
No.
Dr. Polito? None
No,
of you.
and we would
Of
call
course
authorities,
not.
right?
No one would. That is not a serious or legitimate way to uncover fraud. It is a serious way to put our children into harm's way. If someone had to come knocking on my preschool classroom door when I was teaching to try and record my kids, I would have called the police. So we've got to be real, Mr. Chairman. We want to make sure there's no fraud. But we should not draft childcare policy based off a right-wing YouTube so-called investigation, and we shouldn't put our children in jeopardy, and we should not put our states in jeopardy over these wild claims that we're hearing. Thank you.
Senator Collins.
Thank you, Ms.
The federal government of the United States, the most powerful government on earth, froze childcare funding for entire states, affecting thousands of working families, based not on audits, not on Inspector General findings, not on prosecutorial evidence, but on videos posted by self-appointed internet investigators with iPhones and an agenda. And the people paying the price are not politicians. They are parents. They are children. Senator Patty Murray, a woman who, let us remember, did not come to Washington from a boardroom or a law firm, but from a preschool classroom, stood before that committee and said what needed to be said. Witch hunts are not oversight. Blind accusations are not accountability. Every single witness, every one of them confirmed what any reasonable person already knows. You do not let an unannounced stranger into a facility full of children. That is not transparency. That is a security breach. No serious person, not Senator Murray, not the witnesses, not the Democrats on that committee, is arguing against accountability. Fraud in federal programs is real. It should be found, it should be prosecuted, and misspent funds should be recovered. The Biden administration did exactly that through proper legal channels, through targeted investigations, through the systems that already exist in federal law. The infrastructure for oversight is there. It has always been there. Audits, monitoring, recovery mechanisms. What is new, what is dangerous, is the decision to bypass all of it in favor of blanket punishment driven by political calculation. That is a statement of priorities. And the priority, evidently, is not the well-being of children. The priority is feeding a narrative that says government programs are inherently corrupt, that public investment is waste, that the social safety net is a scam. It is the oldest play in a very old book. Starve the program, then point to its failure as proof it never should have existed. And we should name the deeper current running beneath all of this. The attack on childcare is not an isolated incident. It fits neatly into a broader pattern, the systematic undermining of the public institutions that working Americans depend on: education, healthcare, housing, childcare. One by one, they are being defunded, discredited, and dismantled, not because they have failed, but because their success is inconvenient to an ideology that believes government should do nothing for the people it serves. Senator Murray asked the committee, and really, she was asking the country to get real, to stop drafting policy based on conspiracy content, to stop treating viral outrage as evidence, to stop endangering children in the name of protecting them.